Hey guys, that was a little slow on my part, but welcome into another edition of Make Every Second Count Live. Now, I'm very excited about tonight, but I am your host, Jeff Marconette Jr., and I am the award winning international Make Every Second Count speaker. Now, tonight's episode is going to be a little different. Now, we normally either go through steps to help you get to where you want to get or over certain things, or we go through issues that we have had in our lives. But tonight, we're actually going to go through both. And from myself, who has been through a serious car accident in the hospital 3.5 months and a coma 2.5 months. I was told I would never walk again, but I'm here now trying to help you guys out. And I know this guy has one heck of an amazing story. So I would like to introduce Kawan Glover.
Hey everybody, how you doing?
Oh, it's so great to have you on here, Kawan. And I would like for you just to take a minute and introduce yourself. Tell everybody what you do, why you do what you do, and we'll figure the rest out from there.
Yeah, so thanks Jeff for the introduction. It's an honor and a pleasure to be here with you guys. My name is again Kawan Glover. I am a international selling author, published author. I'm a victory coach, and I'm a serial overcomer. And I've had a stroke, 3 brain surgeries, dealt with depression, anxiety, had suicidal ideations, one attempt, opioid addiction, and I was saddled with a medical debt of 1.2 million. I have since overcome it all in the last 6 years, and now I'm here with Jeff to tell you a little bit more about how exactly you overcome adversity. So that's my story, and I'm sticking to it.
That is great, Kawan. Now, I know that everybody out there would like to hear some further details, so we will give them that in a minute. But first, I want to welcome in the big dreamer himself, Mr. Greg Walker from Columbus, Ohio. I want to welcome in my dad from the soccer fields at the moment. And then I want to welcome in Sarah. I want to welcome in Nicole. I want to welcome in Amy. And thank you guys so much for watching. And I hope you enjoyed this episode. And please remember you can ask any questions you would like to ask. And don't be afraid to give us thumbs up, hearts, frowning faces, cryy faces, whatever you want to give us. We appreciate that as well. But please go ahead and share this video out because you never know whose life we are going to be able to touch or even save. So I would welcome you to do that. But right now, I'm going to let Kwan get into his story and I will just be here when I need to be. All right, take it over, Kwan.
Yeah, so around the age of 20 is when it all began. I started noticing I had motor function issues, balance issues, and one day I was in an office with my mentor, and he kind of gave me a funny look and said, "Are you okay?" And I said, "Yeah." In my mind, it was very clear in my speech, but it came out like a broken record. I was like, "Yeah, I'm just fine," and I couldn't write. So they sent me to a doctor, and that doctor sent me to a hospital. That hospital did a CAT scan and sent me to another hospital. They did something called an MRI, a brain scan, and they said I had something called a cavernous malformation on my brain. Now, at the time, I was 20 years old, as I said before, and I had no notion or no vantage point to understanding what that actually meant. I just wanted them to get rid of it. But instead of operating in that moment, they sent me home and said, "Well, monitor, and if it gets worse, come back." And it did get worse. I started having double vision. I lost my balance again, and I had my first brain surgery on October 15th, 2014. And, I got up and went to school a week later. So again, still being 20 and naive and arrogant. I believe I was invincible. I just had brain surgery and I got up and walked away. So I wasn't changed by that surgery. It wasn't until I was in physical and occupational therapy where I got my first experience with a mindset change. And just, it was a humbling experience coming from someone who had been able-bodied and an athlete for most of his life to all of a sudden not be able to use your dominant side at the rate you used to being able to use it. And I had one particular experience where we're assigned a task to go out in public and handle money. So it's a group of us, and we're in the gift shop store. And there's a guy in my cohort, and there's a woman in front of me, and there's me. And the guy in my cohort is having trouble handling money. And the lady behind him was getting increasingly frustrated, and she let out a heavy growl, like, "Ugh." And I could tell she was getting frustrated by the time he was taking. And in that moment, I instantly thought, you don't even know what he's going through. You don't know what he's been. You don't know what his story is. And then in that night, I thought about, is that the way I view other people? And that was the first big perspective change that really got in my thought process toward a different way of being.
Man, that's crazy. I think everybody out there needs to have a perspective change. I think perspective is just one of those things that is crazy about life because it's something that I never thought of before everything happened to me. And I really appreciate you bringing that up. But is there any, I'm sorry if I interrupted your story.
Yeah, so, I mean, the story gets lengthy, so it's probably better if you interrupt sometimes, or I'll be talking this whole broadcast and nobody will get anything out of it, just my story.
Oh, and I am paying attention. I'm just trying to get some more viewers on here at the moment.
No problem at all.
All
Um,
right, cool.
yeah, so the story continues. I get out of rehab with that new perspective. I go back to school in that spring 2015 semester. That summer, my reality, I wasn't able to accept or acknowledge the fact that I was different as a person. So I went through a major depression, um, and it was just really debilitating for me as a young man, not being able to be 100% able-bodied. But I got through it. I started an internship, and then I had an appointment with my doctor after another MRI, and he said essentially the mass in my head was growing back, and it was growing back bigger and faster. So we had to schedule another surgery, and it took place on October 1st, 2015. And there is a dream I had that I can't really explain, so I just tell it to you, and you can make what of it whatever you want or whatever you can. In that dream, I got up. I was in a hoodie and a jeans jacket, and I'm throwing punches, going back to my boxing days. And all my functions are working well, and then it starts to rain. But the rain is like black, like coal, and it's not touching me. So I start floating up and losing my human visage. And then I'm watching this happen from point of view, and I'm also watching it like a painter's canvas. So as I'm floating up, there's a hand at the top waiting for me that pushes me back down. Everything goes in reverse. I wake up out of that second surgery. And, you know, I didn't register with it then, but when I think about it now, I never tell that story any differently, maybe with a few or less details, depending on who I'm telling it to. It just, it definitely hits me now that, it may have been attributed to what my purpose is now. And then, in the hospital, I had a spinal tap due to the surgery, and they would usually rate physical pain on a scale from 1 to 10. Well, that spinal tap drains your brain fluid, and it had my brain knocking against my skull, so the pain level was like a 37. And they gave, yeah, it was intense. And they gave me a drug called fentanyl. Eventually, that had very negative effects, so they gave me something called Percocet. And then on the way out, they gave me Firaset. Fast forward to when I'm in school again in spring 2016, I get addicted to Percocet, prescription drugs, and codeine promethazine. And, for a time, it wasn't a physical dependence, but it was more of a mental, emotional escapism because again, I could not acknowledge, I could not accept, and these are things we'll talk about later, the fact that my life was not what I thought it was going to be. But fortunately, I'm naturally disciplined and naturally strong-willed, and I believe in that Creator had His hand in this. I was able to kick all those things cold turkey and finish out that semester going through the summer. And I met a girl, and she helped me out with a lot of mental health issues, encouraged me to get into therapy, and everything was smooth sailing. I walked the stage in May 23rd, 2017, and started the job May 25th, 2017. I had the girl, I had the car, I had the house, I had my life. I think everything was on the up and up. And I'll take a pause there. If any of your listeners have any questions, if you have any more questions or comments, and then I'll finish up.
Well, I want to say hi to Justine and tell her thank you so much for watching. And that's all that I have for now. I'm just listening to your story, and I, I'm I'm engrossed in your story. I don't know if that's the right word, but it
It
works.
it works here. So I'll go ahead and I'll finish up. So after I started my job that summer, I got a new place, got a new car, got my girl, and I started going to the gym. And I started to notice how I had these weak spells. And then in September, I went to the doctor because I started having headaches again, and the doctor wasn't there. So I went back to my mentor's office. He asked me one question: "Do you need to go to the hospital?" And I was like, "Yeah." So I went to the hospital. The brain bleeding again, and basically the first occurrence with this repeats itself. I go to the hospital. They say we're gonna wait a while. I come back because symptoms get worse, but this time they get much worse. I lost feeling on the left side of my face, the left side of my mouth. I lost a lot of my vision. There was a constant ringing in my ears. There was weakness and deficits on my right side, numbness on my right side. So I was deteriorating in front of myself essentially, and we went on the hunt for different doctors because my first surgeon, Dr. Jonathan Sherman at GW, said we needed a different approach. The first two approach had been successful, but it didn't completely get rid of it. So I found a Dr. Albert Ruckers. At first, his practice didn't take my insurance, but because that doctor, another doctor, and Dr. Sherman met up at a medical conference, they decided Dr. Lou was the best for the job. So I went to Rutgers, had the surgery. It was an extended stay because I experienced a lot of blood clots, infections, and a lot of other things you can read about in my book. And then I came back home, and if I feel like a war veteran, as in I have been fighting for most of my life, my young adult life, and now there was no fight to have. So what was I supposed to do? And then the surgery happened October 12th, 2017. But in
That's
January,
my birthday.
wow, well, look at that. Coincidence. I don't think it's coincidence. Dr. Rubin says, Dr. West says, coincidence is just God's way of remaining anonymous. So he has
Yeah.
something to do with that. Um, and then in January 2018, I just started getting on my Facebook and sharing my story. And, I went through a few things here and there, a few mindset changes, a few perspective shifts. I wrote a book, started a business, uh, started really sharing my story. And now I'm here talking to you. And I have my book that I can officially say is in my hand. And everything is on the up and up. And now I'm here talking to you, Jeff, about really what it takes to overcome adversity.
That is awesome. So I know that. Wow, dude, I can't even begin to put that into words. Just how amazing that story is. So eh, I don't know, dude. That's just crazy. Crazy. That's the best word I can come up with. So I I'm really curious about how you overcame this challenge, how you got through the fact that you had to have multiple brain surgeries and you had a stroke and you were an active person at one time and that was all taken away. So do you have any steps that you use to get over it?
Yeah, therefore, and I think we talked about this a little bit, but we're going to really get in depth into it now. And, the four steps there, for me, that were done in this order. Some people may shift them around, but I think always the first step is acknowledgement. And that's what made it so difficult for me, because I spent so much time in denial, not facing the real issue, not understanding that this is why I was exacerbating the situation. My lack of patience, my arrogance, my inability to sit still and really assess a problem. So acknowledgement, it's just, a lot of people spend time in denial. They don't want to say, hey, this is a problem. They'll just ignore it and move to the side. And that's not getting rid of it. That's just saving it for later. And at some point, that problem will come back to bite you. So acknowledging is like sitting down with yourself and saying, hey, this is a problem. What you're doing is causing a problem. The fact that this keeps happening is a problem. I need to find a way to address it. And then once I did that, I was able to start acting on that problem. That's when you take actionable steps to move forward to find a solution. And when you take action, it's small changes at first. It could be an activity change, a routine change, a mindset change. Start adding affirmations, start adding prayers, start adding meditation, start adding techniques that can really put you in a mindset, put you in a mind state that will be beneficial to you, and the actions you take, better sleeping, better eating. These are things that seem simple, but they can have a drastic change on your problem and help you find a better solution. And one of the things that really is key, and it's a really key action, is oftentimes we ask ourselves terrible questions. Why me? Why do I suck so bad? Why does this hurt so much? And when you do that, you have no choice but to answer yourself with terrible answers. Why you? Well, you deserve this. Your mind will make up answers. So one of the action steps I encourage you to take is start asking yourself better questions, reaffirming yourself, and then slowly but surely add more action steps that are applicable and reasonable for who you are as a person in your journey, and that way you can start developing a better mindset. And as you're going through those action steps and you're noticing the changes, you're going to want to adapt to those changes. And there might be changes in your lifestyle, changes in your thinking pattern, changes in the things that you consume, changes in the people you hang around. Because oftentimes the changes don't correlate with who you are, who you think you are now. So you have to recognize those changes and adapt to them in a way that's helpful for your mental, emotional, physical, financial, and spiritual health. And those adaptations are unique to each individual, but recognizing that you have to make those adaptations are a key component in recovery and a key component in really achieving success, your ultimate victory in your journey through whatever adversity you're facing. And the last and final step is, after you acknowledge your problem, after you take those action steps, after you start adapting to those changes, it's acceptance. It's really just accepting that, hey, this may be your new reality. This may be the way you are for the time being. It's okay to be where you are, because even for me, I may identify with the disabled community, but I am not disabled. I'm just able to do things differently. But I'm accepting the reality that is. And when you refute what is, you find yourself in a whirlwind of delusion and confusion and pain that you are conflicting within yourself. Root yourself in the present moment and accept. It takes a little effort, it takes a little diligence, it takes discipline, it takes persistence. But once you accept where you are and what your reality is, you can start to move forward with your life and really live and embrace the victory, the lessons, the experience, the teaching, the hope the victory of your whole entire situation. And I think acceptance is probably the most important step, not the most practical, but the most important, because that's when you're finally able to put all your adversity behind you. So those are the 4 steps, very generalized. They can be in any different order, but those are my 4 steps to overcoming adversity.
That is amazing, and I appreciate you doing those 4 steps for me. But I do have one question, because I know personally that it's kind of hard to accept things the way they are when something happens like that, and it takes abilities away that you were so used to having. How exactly would you suggest someone accept that?
And I think, one thing I missed in acceptance, you are not supposed to accept this just with your internal will by yourself. You oftentimes have friends, family, loved ones, a community around you that helps you understand that nobody sees you as differently. You may operate differently, but also there are people in your life that are going to be a reality check for you. Because I remember trying to rush around and move the same as I was, and I had people in my corner like, hey, you can't do that. You're gonna hurt yourself. But you also have people encouraging you to not see yourself any differently. It takes a community. It takes people around you. It takes time when you dedicate to yourself. And acceptance is not something you're gonna gain overnight. It may not come in a week. It may not come in a month. It may not come in a year. But eventually, if you keep persisting, if you keep reaffirming, if you keep the people around you, if you keep good company, if you keep pushing, and that's persisting until something happens, something positive will happen. And one of the things that really helps me stay firm in my acceptance is hope. And there's always light at the end of the tunnel. There's always a silver lining. I always say the darkest night comes before the brightest morning, and your morning is coming. The sun will shine, rain, wind, snow, or shine. It's the sun is going to be there. You might not be able to see it, but it's there. And I think if you keep pushing, you keep persisting, and you keep embracing the community you have around you, keep reaffirming yourself, acceptance isn't too far behind.
That is great advice, and thank you for that, because that's what we try to do on this show. We try to offer advice for people that are dealing with things, and that's why I especially like your 4 points. But you were talking about a book. How can people get the book if they want to read more about you? I mean,
Yeah,
you're a pretty amazing guy. They probably want to know more.
yeah. So just published this book called Favor: How Stroke, Struggle, and Surgery Helped Me Find My Life's Purpose. I don't know if you can see it back here on the banner, but you can get the book. It's available on Amazon everywhere. I'm gonna send Jeff the link, and he can post it if he wants to, or you guys can DM me directly on Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn. You can email me at overcomeadversitytoday@gmail.com. Again, that's overcomeadversitytoday@gmail.com. Um, Wherever you can find Kawan Glover, you can get the information about the book. I put it all on these pages, about 234 pages, and I hope it's a good story that people are going to enjoy. And it was an interesting process to put it all together, but it's there, it's out there. My story is up there and available for you all. And the underlying message is hope. You know, no matter how dark the times gets, no matter how difficult the situation is, there's always hope to pull you out of the darkness.
Yeah, and I would like to say hi to another person that just came in. Lady Rochelle Dotson Matheny is here, and she actually says, "Congratulations on the book." And
Thank
she knows that things come difficult for people because she is a breast cancer survivor. She has actually been on this show before.
you.
So I find that to be awesome. But if you could please put your information in the comments after this show, I would appreciate it because I don't want to type all that out right now. It would take me a long time and it would be like I'm not paying attention. So,
Absolutely.
all right, cool. Well, dude, thank you so much for being here tonight. I appreciate it. And I know that the people out there in the audience appreciate it too, because they wouldn't be watching this program if they didn't appreciate it. But look, I'm Jeff Marconette Jr., and for me, Ah, L- Lady Rochelle, Lady Ray Ray, as I refer to her, says her biggest takeaway was how positive and persistent you are with it. So that's great. Thank you, Lady Ray Ray. I appreciate that. But from me, I have a challenge for each of you this week, next week, for the rest of the month, and then the rest of the year. I need you to make every second count. Why? Because you never know when those seconds are going to run out on your one life. Hey, you guys, if you're struggling to make every second count and you want further details on it, feel free to reach out to me. But also, you can watch this program. It's on every Tuesday night at 7 p.m. Eastern Time. And I would be happy to talk with you, and I'm sure Kawan would as well. So, again, I'm Jeff Marconette Jr., the award winning international Make Every Second Count speaker, telling you guys to remember that you make every second count. Deuces.
Peace.
That was funny.